Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspired disorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Space Jam, a new legacy, out now on HBO Max as part of their day-and-date release with theaters. Remake, reboot, legacy-quel. I would guess I'd call it a legacy-quel. It's a movie that exists in the same universe as the first Space Jam. At least they reference it. There's definitely references a few times throughout this movie. But Space Jam, a new legacy. Instead of Michael Jordan, it is LeBron James. Still Warner Brothers. Same kind of premise. There's a basketball game with the Toons versus the Goon Squad. The Toon Squad versus the Goon Squad. I did not like this one as much as the first one. And the first one's not great, but this one's not great either. There's some great elements to it, but the story is stupid. Like, if they had just made some different choices with the story, I probably would have enjoyed this quite a bit more. I mean, it's updated premise instead of like in the first one, if I remember correctly, the Goon Squad just kind of abducts basketball players. So the Toons have to recruit Michael Jordan to help them play a game so that the players can get. I don't know what the goal was in the first one. This one, it is LeBron James has a son. He has two kids. He probably has multiple kids. And one of his kids is really into video games, but not into playing basketball, which there's a kind of not a flashback, but you get to see LeBron James as a child playing basketball. But getting distracted playing a Bugs Bunny game on a Game Boy, which I don't know if that game existed. It looked like a Mario game, but they just put Bugs Bunny in place of Mario. But it was, showing that LeBron James was into video games as a kid, but, his coach, made him focus on basketball to become the best basketball player. So the future LeBron James as an adult doesn't at all see he's so single-minded as far as life is concerned that the fact that his kid isn't into basketball like him and spending all of his time trying to get good at it, he finds that a bad thing, despite his kid actually designing a game on his own. And even though the movie is more impressed with the fact that he designed his own characters, but he designed his own game. Like, you would think, just, if you're writing a movie that have tones about people devoting their life to passion, hard work, and what it takes to be passionate, but also understanding that the other side of being passionate, like this movie should have focused. There's two elements to it, right? Like LeBron James putting his all the hard work in over the years to become good at playing basketball, but also understanding that when he's playing the game of basketball, outside of practice, outside of training, there's an element of fun. And that's the driving force for him to want to get good at this thing. It's because he's getting paid to play a game. Like, that should have been the kind of overall moral structure of this thing, which it was like right there, but it kind of misses the mark. It's more of a thing where it's like, it doesn't understand. There's at no point is there that kind of clarity to the situation, despite him having fun, as in goofing off playing this game that's literally altered and digitized into a video game version of basketball. It's like, that's like going too far. It's like this movie basically acts like a kid who makes video games is just having fun the whole time. Whereas the reality of designing a video game, that kid spent hours upon hours staring at a screen full of like code and shit. Like, it's not an exciting thing to like program things, but if you work hard, you're able to have a product at the end of it that's amazing and functional, and so but at no point is that at all like regarded as a thing. It's weird. So there's that problem, right? Just the overall messaging of this thing is sloppy because of bad writing. But then the bad guy of this movie is basically Warner Brothers itself, which is kind of insane that a movie studio would fund a film, not even just like a film that's a reboot, legacy sequel, whatever, to a movie that they did before that's very centered around the studio. This movie shows a bunch of worlds. That's actually one of the more interesting things that this movie does. But they are the bad guy because, first off, it shows how Hollywood is actually run as algorithms. They just look at numbers, and they're not in the business of making original artwork. They're not in the business of taking chances on unproven IP. They're in the business of regurgitating IP that happens to be trending among people online. Like if numbers happen to spike for the old Space Jam, then that indicates that they can make some more money if they were to regurgitate that thing. It's the same thing that Disney's doing. It feels almost like this movie wanted to make fun of Disney, but ultimately they're making fun of themselves as the bad guy, positioning themselves as the bad guy, because it's technically a quote-unquote algorithm, which the name of the algorithm is called Algorithm, which of course is played by a black guy. Got to have a black villain that's an algorithm. He's not part of the thing. He's like the scapegoat of the company, basically, this algorithm. Played by Don Cheadle, which I thought he did a good job, versus everybody else in this movie. Just LeBron James is not a good actor at all. Not that Michael Jordan was a good actor either, but it's kind of crazy that somebody could be that bad of an actor, and then like during the process of making the film, like the director not being able to show LeBron, it's like, look at this performance here, like you look like you are heavily sedated on a bunch of pharmaceuticals. The lack of any kind of energy or emotion that's coming from you, it is flat and dull and boring. But that doesn't happen. And the director is not really the greatest director, Malcolm D. Lee. He did do Girls Trip, which I think is more of a movie that highlights Tiffany Haddish's talents and abilities more so than the director's ability to make a movie, because it was a pretty standard comedy film. He's done a lot of pretty standard kind of like romantic comedy. He did was it Night School with Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish also, which was okay. Like it's a mediocre comedy, like in that rom-com comedy kind of area, very kind that aesthetic. Nothing really flashy, nothing that great. I mean, this one definitely had a huge budget. It looked cool, but there wasn't like it was clear that a storyteller, somebody who's good at telling a story, wasn't behind the writer's table or the camera in this. It feels like a movie that was written by an algorithm, really. So anyway, his kid is into, designing video games, which LeBron is completely detached from understanding that kids could be into anything other than basketball. And they go to a meeting at Warner Brothers, and they're talking about the studio execs are talking about, which is Sarah Silverman and Steven Yeun, which is kind of cool to see them for a moment in this film. But they go into a pitch meeting, and they're pitching LeBron on rebooting Space Jam. And he thinks, actually, no, they were talking about scanning LeBron because he's a very busy man. Doesn't have time to be in movies. They're like, Warner Brothers is like, okay, we got this technology where we're going to digitally scan you, And then we can put you in every movie. And then they start like rattling off all these different movies, these different Warner Brothers movies that like, oh, imagine you're in this movie. Imagine you're in that movie, which is basically we can remake these movies with you in them. And it's just a digital you. And then he hates the idea. So the studio execs, because they're mindless people, these Warner Brothers studio execs are so mindless that they just agree with the talent and they blame the algorithm for coming up with the idea, algorithm. So it cuts to inside the computer system, which is like hackers. Like the aesthetic for a lot of this movie is hackers redux. So you're in the hackerverse, and algorithm is taking offense because those algorithms and their ego. So he becomes the disgruntled algorithm that is going to suck LeBron into his system along with his kid and cause all this havoc. Okay. Like, I think what should have happened is that, like, LeBron and his kid, like, lightning strikes while they're playing the game, and it's like a Jumanji thing or whatever, and they're sucked into it, and it's like this big adventure inside the Warner movie universe. Because that was kind of fun. There were aspects of them, like, flying through this space, kind of, and every Warner property had its own world. So it was like a Harry Potter world and a Mad Max world and a Matrix world. It was all the big properties that Warner Brothers has. Aside from, I guess there was definitely, there was some comic books also. But they were shown as comic books, not as the movie property. But that was interesting. Seeing them go through Bugs Bunny and LeBron James go through, which a lot of the movie, up until the basketball part comes through, it's all an animated LeBron. So he wasn't really even there, despite the fact this movie, first off, or fourth off, wherever I'm at on the list of grievances, way too long of a film. 2 hours long for this. For a kid's movie that's about basketball, you got to be able to cut that down to 90 minutes. And most of it could have been that intro stuff where it's like basically the movie reminding everybody who LeBron James is. Like, oh, he's the best athlete of all time. And it's like this fluff piece clip montage of all of the things that LeBron is, which, I'm sure the Michael Jordan one was similar also, but 2 hours, way too long. But it should have been LeBron going through these worlds with Bugs trying to find his kid, and then he ends up in his kid's video game. But the only way to get out, like, the kid's smart and he's figured out, it's like, okay, if I can get my dad here to my video game, then that will be safe passage back to the real world. But we have to play this game, and we have to, like, and then he has to win, or like, he thinks he has to win. LeBron, I don't know. You set up a situation where they feel like they need to be competitive, but the ultimate goal is to get out of the game. And even just it could have been just as simple as LeBron not understanding that his son has the same drive as him. It's just focused on video games instead of basketball. That should have been the whole thing the entire time, and that would have been the crux for them to compete when he finally gets there. Like, his son is like, oh, what took you so long? And LeBron's like, I've been this and this. It's like, if you hadn't been playing video games, like, they could have easily restructured this story to make it way more cohesive, instead of like, okay, we need to have scenes where we show off the Matrix because that made us a lot of money. We need to show scenes where the tunes are in the Mad Max world, Mad Max Fury Road specifically, because that made us a ton of money. We need to kind of touch on Harry Potter, but we can't really get the rights to a lot of stuff, so we're just going to kind of reference it. But then when they play the basketball game, guess what? Because we're Warner Brothers, we digitally scanned all of our actors in all of the different costumes from all of the different IPs that we've had over the years. We digitally scanned them. So we can make this artificial crowd of all of these people that are part of our thing. But since we have them artificially scanned, we can now remake all of those movies. So, like, technically, from a studio standpoint, we're kind of two birds, one stone here, because not only are we going to be making a movie, but in the production of that film, we're going to get thousands of digital scans of all of our characters that we can use to make movies, which is the whole premise of this movie, that it's a bad thing that the studios are being run by algorithms and doing things to shortcut art in any way, whether it's getting rid of actors, whether it's getting rid of writers, whether it's getting, just hiring mediocre directors to do regurgitated films from yesteryear in an updated way. But I didn't care about the basketball game. The evil goon squad was a lot better established in the first film than this one. It is very much a side thought for them. It's like they just had to get some players all of a sudden, which it's been so long since I followed basketball. I stopped watching around the time LeBron had been drafted in the NBA, so that should tell you how long it's been. I don't recognize any of the basketball players they got from the Goon Squad. I don't at all. But it's whatever. The CG sceneries and everything were cool. When they went to the different worlds was cool. But overall, it really feels like a film that was written by an algorithm and then given to a director that the studio felt that they can control enough to make, whatever they wanted. And it's just insane that they're positioned as the antagonist in this film, Warner Brothers itself, and they're basically doing the thing that they're in the movie that they're doing, but it's all whatever. And halfway through this game, a rap battle, like just a rap battle, like you want to talk about just really trying to, like, I don't understand why you would have a rap battle at all. So you can see Porky Pig rap. Has nothing to do with the story. There was no real battle because nobody rapped on the other side. It was just Porky Pig rapping, I believe. Maybe like Don Cheadle threw out a couple bars or whatever, but it seemed like it was just Porky Pig doing a halftime show, and they called it a rap battle. But just kind of random out of nowhere, and it's just, I don't know. Like, I can understand kids enjoying this because they're going to see a lot of references to stuff, although I would imagine if they're kids, they're not going to understand the Matrix references or the Mad Max references. Parents will, but they're just references because they happen to have gone through that world. But I think if they had made going to those different worlds part of the narrative of we're trying to track down his son that's caught in this thing, instead they're trying to recruit players for this basketball game that they have to play. I don't know. If the writing was better, it would have made so much of a difference, because this was disjointed. Doesn't really make sense. The overarching they don't understand the movie they're making. Like, there's no like comprehension to like having to get good at something versus having fun doing the thing once you're good at doing it. That balance of being somebody who becomes good at something. But it is what it is. I'm sure it's going to make a good amount of money. I'm sure they'll make tons of merchandise for it. And it's a thing where, despite Warner Brothers being the bad guy in this movie, they end up winning. They're going to, because they're already getting those digital scans. I mean, They literally got all those digital scans for the production of this film. Maybe not the actual actors who are playing those characters, but still they digitally scan them. Oh, and the kind of the twist of this is that like the kid invented portable scanning technology on his phone that they use to scan the world into it's insane that where this movie tries to go to like build tension, but it has nothing to do with anything. Whatever. Space Jam: A New Legacy is not a very good legacy, but it is what it is. Wealthy companies win in the long run, and art will die. Get yourself $25 in new credit when you sign up for your great new cell phone service over at Ting. Go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/Ting. Sign up now with that link, and you get yourself $25 to put towards a new device, put towards your service. But it's a great quality service that you do not pay an arm and a leg for. I love it. I've been using it for years and pay so very little. I could almost pay 2 months of my cell phone bill with $25 credit that you get for free when you go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/Ting. That's TING, inspireddisorder.com/Ting. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com, and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!